Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. I appreciate you being here today. In today's video, we take on part 3 of my Ultimate Demon Lord Clan Boss Guide. Now, I hope you've watched the first 2 parts. If you haven't, I will put links up to those 2 guides. You definitely want to watch this series in order. In today's video, we're going to take on the scary topic. Actually, 2 scary topics, maybe. The first one is speed tuning. Yeah, we can't avoid it. We have to talk about speed tuning at some point. Please don't stop the video. I promise I will walk you through how speed tuning works in the Clan Boss. And we're not going to jump full on into the Clan Boss calculator just yet. We will save that for its own video. So in today's video, we're actually going to be talking more about pre-built speed tunes. Other players have built speed tunes effectively, and they have published those in various places. And we can take their experience, their knowledge, and use it to our benefit. So we're going to talk about the benefits of speed tuning and also specific speed tunes you can start to look out for and try as you're moving your way into Nightmare Clan Boss. Finally, we're going to be taking on unkillable teams in today's video. Unkillable teams must be speed tuned. There is no such thing, at least I've never seen, an unkillable team that is not speed tuned. So as we talk about speed tunes, we're going to talk about unkillable teams as well. Remember that you can speed tune a traditional killable team composition. So speed tuning is going to work for both unkillable teams and killable teams, but having an understanding of all of these mechanics is going to better educate you and better prepare you to make your own choices around your team boss composition. The goal here is to get into Nightmare Clan Boss or even get through Nightmare Clan Boss and start knocking on the door of Ultra Nightmare. Okay, I hope you're psyched for this one. It's going to be interesting. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we actually have to discuss is what is speed tuning and why is it so valuable? In the previous videos, we talked about specific buffs and debuffs we're looking for. We know that in order to increase our damage against the clan boss, we need weaken, we need decreased defense, we might want to use poisons and HP burns. In order to extend the life of our team, we might want to bring increased defense, shields, ally protections, strengthen buffs. We could also use an unkillable team composition, which requires an unkillable buff or a block damage buff. We've also talked about taking on the stun, which is potentially either being cleansed, being blocked with a block debuffs buff, or just being tanked by the right champion. So there are a lot of different things and a lot of different moving parts that are going into this fight. Now imagine for a second that you have all of those things. You have everything that you could possibly need on a team composition, but the buffs go up at the wrong time, or they come down at the wrong time, or the debuffs don't land when you need them, and all of a sudden your team composition falls apart. So speed tuning is designed to take the speed of the boss and use that speed as sort of a metronome, right? Like the musical instrument that keeps time, right? Like that's the thing. We have this device that keeps time for us. And that's what the Clan Boss calculator is. We'll talk about that later on. But speed tuning allows us to make sure that the rhythm of our team is consistent. And so we always have the right buffs up at the right time. We always have the debuffs up that we need. And that way we get the longest fight that we can get. So that is what speed tuning is, making sure that you have the buffs up that you need and the debuffs up that you need when you need them. That's the whole concept, okay? It's more complicated than that in order to actually speed tune a team, but that's why it's valuable. And in fact, a speed-tuned team, a properly speed-tuned team, just like in Arena, is always more valuable than the same team when it's not properly speed-tuned. Now, a very powerful unspeed-tuned team could potentially outperform a weaker but perfectly speed-tuned team. That is possible. If you have better gear, if you have better champions, that might just be enough to overpower, just brute force the result. However, I'm going to actually show you that comparison. I'm going to do that right now. So I've already done my Ultra Nightmare for the day. And if you look, I have done a 120 million on Ultra Nightmare. Now this is with a speed-tuned unkillable team. It doesn't matter if it's an unkillable team or a killable team. The idea here is it is speed-tuned. If I took these same exact champions and put them on a team where the tune would fall out of tune. The speeds didn't match up and they would fall out of tune. As soon as I missed the right buff or debuff, my run would end, potentially 20 turns earlier. Now, for Ultra Nightmare, all you need is 70.3 million. When I say only, that's a tall order. But obviously, I don't need 120 million. I like having 120 million. It's cool. But the point is, there is a threshold that you need to reach. Now, what I'm going to do here is I am going to build another Ultra Nightmare team. I'm going to do it right now in front of you. You're going to see it. I'm going to use all of the information that I talked about in the first 2 Clan Boss videos. So when I put this team together, I promise you it's going to be a very good team and you're going to understand why it's good. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove most of these champions. I'm actually going to take 4 of these champions out. And I'm going to leave Cardiel. Now, Cardiel is my most powerful champion. He's an amazing champion. He's great at Clan Boss. He brings heal. He brings a cleanse. He brings a block debuff. He brings an increased crit rate. He brings an increased crit damage. And he brings an ally attack. Plus, he can join allies' attacks. So, amazing champion. He's going to bring me so many things that I need in this fight. So I'm going to keep him here. And in fact, I'm going to add his duo. He actually has a duo. Her name is Sissia. So Sissia would bring HP burns and a weaken. Okay, so those are basically damage, debuffs. All right, so now I've got a lot of things covered here. I've got some survivability buffs, especially I have a chance to cleanse that stun or block that stun with a block debuffs buff. And then I have a ton of damage. Cardiel will actually always attack when Sissia attacks. So every time Sissia attacks, it's a 2 champion attack. All right, now I have my damage. I want to start bringing in some defensive champions who are going to keep this team alive. But if I can get some more damage out there, that'd be great. I have an HP burner. Maybe I can get a poisoner as well. And I have the perfect champion. You know that I love her. Her name is Mithrala. Now, Mithrala brings poisons, increased defense, increased attack, strengthen, shield, and she's another cleanser. All right, we've got a ton of good champions here. We've basically got all of our roles covered, except maybe for ally protection. I don't think we have that yet. So I do have some other things that I still need. I want to extend the life of my team. So I'm missing 2 important debuffs. The first is decrease attack. So I need to get that. And the second actually is a damage debuff. I need to get a decreased defense because I don't have that yet on the team. So let me go and find that on a champion if I can. And I think I have the perfect champion. This is Venom Mage. Now, Venom Mage is going to bring a decreased attack and a decreased defense and some additional poisons and poison activation. So she's going to pair up really well with Mithrala. Now, for the last champion, I want to make sure that I have as close to 100% uptime on my buffs and debuffs as I can. And I want to bring anything else that I may need. So I'm going to go with one of the best epics in the game, and that is Godseeker Neri. So these are 5 God tier champions, with the exception maybe Venom Mage is just like an S tier champion and not a God tier champion. But Godseeker Neri is probably one of the 5 most powerful epics in the game. We've got Mithrala and Cardiel, who are 2 of the 5 best champions in the game. And then we have Sissia. Okay, Sissia is maybe not God tier champion as well, but when you pair her up with Cardiel, she gets even stronger and definitely an S tier champion. So just very quickly to reiterate some of the things that each champion brings, I want to show you here in the roster some of the skills. So for Godseeker Neri, she is bringing some heals on the A1. She is bringing heals on the A2. She also decreases the duration of enemy buffs and increases the duration of all buffs on the allies. So that means that strengthen and increased defense and increased attack and block debuffs that Cardiel and Mithrala bring, all of those buffs are going to be extended. So this is really important for 100% uptime of buffs. She also has a revive just in case somebody happens to die. She also has a second revive on her passive, but more importantly, she has an increase healing passive. This increases the healing all allies receive by 10%. That's going to synergize really well with Cardiel because Cardiel heals on his A1 and he's going to have a ton of A1s with Sissia on the team. to look at Venom Mage, just to reiterate, she is bringing the decreased defense and the decreased attack. Now, the decreased attack is going to happen if a poison is up there. So having 2 poisoners makes this more likely. We want 100% uptime on the decreased attack if we can get it. There's also this additional passive, which enemies under heal reduction debuffs inflict 15% less damage. So this is almost like having a second strengthen buff on the team, one of the lesser ones. So the strengthen buffs are 15% and 25%. So this is basically like a lesser strengthen buff in addition to the strengthen buff that Mithrala brings. Now, Mithrala is probably the best, like strongest champion you can get for just keeping a clan boss team alive. She brings every buff you basically want. So here you have a strengthen buff, you have a shield buff. This is also a cleanse, by the way. You also have an increased defense. You can also get an increased attack here on the A2. And then her passive, which doesn't really play here with the Hex and the Petrification, does increase her resistance. So she is likely to resist any of the debuffs that the boss is applying. Remember, the stun cannot be resisted, but she can resist the slow and therefore then use her A3 to cleanse it from everybody else. So she's not going to be affected by the slow of the Spirit boss or the poisons of the Void boss or anything like that. You can see she also has a Brimstone, so we're going to get some extra damage out of the Brimstone. Likewise, my Cardiel is a 5-star blessing. So we've got Cruelty here at 5 stars, which means he is going to be decreasing the boss's defense by 15%, allowing us to do more damage there. Everybody on this team has a blessing. Sissy has another Brimstone blessing, so we're going to have Brimstone out a lot. We get the lower defense from Cardiel. Our Venom Mage has Iron Will, which doesn't really play here, but does give her additional defense, so makes her a little bit more survivable. In terms of masteries, you'll see every single one of them has either Giant Slayer or War Master. Again, just running through it. There's War Master, there's War Master. Mithrala doesn't have, she has accuracy, which makes sense. But Sissia has War Master, and so does Cardiel. So 4 of our champions have have War Master. Remember, Cardiel's ally attack is going to be getting more A1s out there from the entire team. So that means more War Master procs. So let's go back to the team and just marvel at how good this team is. There's only 2 things they're really missing. One is a debuff extender, and the second is an ally protect. So it's not perfect, but it's really, really good, right? We could potentially pull out one of these damage dealers and find somebody who brings an ally protect and say a weaken and get Sissia out there. But Sissia and Cardiel are just so fun together. So how good is this team? This is an amazing team. They're only missing 2 things, right? One is an ally protect. We don't have an ally protect, but I do have Godseeker and Neri in a Guardian set. So we have a mini ally protect from the Guardian set. If you're not sure what that is, I'll show you really quickly. Here we have the Guardian set, and as you can see, the wearer absorbs 10% of all the damage dealt to allied champions, so it acts like a small ally protect, and then heals by 10% every turn, which means she's going to be very survivable. So even though I don't have an ally protect, I do have at least 1 Guardian set, and there are 2 other things that I'm missing here, neither of which are super important, but one is poison sensitivity that would allow me to do more damage, but I have a ton of damage on this team. And the second thing is a debuff extender. I don't have one of those, so I may not have 100% uptime on every single debuff. Now, that's okay. You don't necessarily need to do that. Remember, this is cramming in probably like 15 of the 18 things that you need on a clan boss team. So this is a very powerful team, very powerful champions built very well, but they're not speed tuned. And that is ultimately going to determine how effective they are. So I'm going to take this off of quick battle and I'm going to just show you this fight. And I'm going to walk you through it a little bit for the first minute or 2, but it is going to be a long fight. It's probably going to run, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. So we will let that go at some point. So you can see right away, all of those buffs are going up on my team. We've got tons of debuffs out already. We've got the healing reduction, which means we're going to get that 15% decreased damage from the passive of Venom Mage. And we are getting poisons out there. We're getting HP burns out there. We're getting Brimstone out there, right? The smite. We're getting decreased defense, decreased attack. That decreased attack is very important. And so right now you can see we're doing a ton of damage. We're up to 2.3 million damage in just 2 turns. and we keep piling it on. Cardiel keeps attacking, keeps getting War Master procs, keeps healing the entire team. And it's very likely that we won't really get stunned too often or too badly because Mithrala or Cardiel can cleanse those stuns. And also Cardiel has the, well, in that case, we actually got stunned. But he has the block debuffs buff. One of the things about the masteries here for Cardiel is that he has the 30% chance to extend any buff that he applies, and that applies to the block debuffs buff as well. So sometimes that's really going to help. But already Mithrala got stunned, and that broke up the original sort of rhythm of this team. Now, I didn't do any AI on this team. I could have done that in order to try to get a little bit better start here. But you can see tons of damage going out. We are over 1 million per turn easily, probably going to approach about 1.25 million per turn. Here's the thing, though. We need 70.3 million damage. And if we're only getting 1 million a turn, we're not going to get there unless we can go past 50 turns, right? We're going to need to get to 60 turns, maybe 65 turns in order to get our damage. So we'll have to see where we cap out in terms of our overall damage per turn. But right now we're doing quite well. So I'm going to go ahead and take myself off the screen. We're going to let this play for a little while, and then we're going to see what happens. So I just wanted to stop there before we get totally wiped out. Let me see. Turn this off auto. Okay, there we are. 35 boss turns, 43 million damage. If you were watching the fight, you noticed several things. One I didn't even mention was that Cardiel's Revive on Death played once. It brought back 3 champions, and that gave us maybe 3 more turns, which was pretty cool. Also, Sissy of Flametongue got close to dead a lot. She died one time and had to be brought back by Godseeker Aniri. And now we are done. We have no revivers. The team is not coming back. This is just Mithrala by herself. So we have done 43.6 million. That is not bad. That is a 2 key for Ultra Nightmare. Not bad at all. But with all of the things that we brought, with all the power, with all the amazing champions, we are still 27 to call it 27 million away from a 1 key on Ultra Nightmare. Now, I'm not telling you this in order for you to get depressed about your clan boss team and your chances of beating this champion, because it's not that hard to beat this champion. I mean, it is hard. It is hard, but it's not impossible to beat this champion. The thing that you need to do, though, is instead of focusing on just getting great champions, you need to focus on building them into the most effective team you can, and that requires speed tuning. But with speed tuning, a much weaker team than this could do a lot more damage than this, and that's the important thing to take away. Speed tuning is the thing that's going to allow you to maximize the power of the champions you've got. And there are a lot of speed tunes out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just go looking, and there are a couple of places to look. So let's now talk about that. So I am back at hellhades.com. I come here a lot. I've come here in every clan boss video because this is such a great resource. Now, what I'm going to tell you about today is not actually the website. You are going to want to register with the website. It is free. You don't have to pay for it. You get access to a lot of things. And one of the things you can get access to is this optimizer. Now, the HH Gaming Raid Optimizer is a third-party piece of software that is going to analyze your account and collect all the data about your champions, your gear, so on and so forth. And then it's going to give you some tools, some very powerful tools that you can't get anywhere else. Now, it's safe. Millions of players use it. I have been using it myself for over a year. So it is a safe piece of software. I can't completely vouch for 100% of everything, but I've never had a problem with it. And this is, the #1 website in the community. So if there were a problem with it, it would be out there. It would be very public. As far as I understand, the Raid Optimizer has just also been updated to be available to mobile players. So whether you're a mobile player or a PC player, you can use the optimizer. So I highly recommend you download it. Now, when you download it, what's going to happen is it's going to interact with the website. So you're going to upload your information from your game into the website. And now we're going to get an additional tool that we can talk about, which is the Team Optimizer. Now, over here in the left-hand column, you can just click on the Team Optimizer. So this is the Team Optimizer screen. Now, if you're looking for a suggestion for a squad based on the champions that you have, this is the place to go. You can pick which dungeon you want to fight. So all of the fights, all of the major fights, all the bosses fights are in the game. Even the faction crypts are in the game. I'm sorry, in the optimizer. So you can go ahead and just pick the fight that you want. I'm going to go ahead and pick Clan Boss, and I'm going to choose the stage. So I'm going to choose Ultra Nightmare. Now, I can just go up here and say, find a team. The optimizer is going to suggest teams to me based on the champions that I have. That's it. All right. Now, these teams are teams that other players have used who happen to be running the optimizer. So if you have downloaded the optimizer and you're running your game while the optimizer is on, it will upload your results to the optimizer to be viewed by other players. So right now you can see that this top team here did 155 million damage on Ultra Nightmare. Right? And there are 58 variations of this team, 103 total battles. The average duration is 20 minutes and the average result is 155 million. So you can just scroll down through these and start to look at the team compositions that you have. Now, I have a very large roster. I've been playing over 2 years. I have a bunch of very good champions. Obviously, I have Cardiel, Ninja, Lydia. I have all of the unkillable champions that I need. I don't have every single one of them, but I have a ton of them. So I have a lot of options here. Now, in order to get away from these particular champions a little bit, I want to go over here onto the column where it says team must include a particular champion or must include a secondary champion. Team excludes a champion. So you can start to refine this a little bit. So let's say, for instance, you had a champion that was on your arena team and you didn't want to rebuild it for your clan boss team. You could exclude it here. So let's say I went and excluded Cardiel. Say I don't want Cardiel as part of my team. In addition, there's a champion I do want to include. So let's say I have Demitha and I want to create a Demitha-based team. So I'm going to say Demitha up here. And now I'm going to apply the filter. And now I'm getting a bunch of other suggestions. Now, right away, you'll notice that the max damage has dropped because I've gotten rid of some champions that are good champions. Or maybe I've included a champion that isn't in the top of, the damage board. But again, there are tons of champions here. Remember, I only need basically 70.5 million. I think it's 70.3 million for a 1 key on Ultra Nightmare. But I'd like a little bit of leeway because this is on Void Affinity. And so there are no weak affinities against Void Affinity. So I want a bit of leeway here. So I might want to look for anything over, say, 80 million. And I'm looking down through this. And some of these have like Helicath. Some of them have Ninja. Let's get rid of Ninja. Let's exclude Ninja because a lot of people don't have Ninja. So let's go ahead and do that. And then in terms of including a champion, there's an Eris team. So Eris and Demitha can be used. Eris is a rare champion. So let's go ahead and say we want to use the Eris and Demitha combo. So now we've got 2 champions we're including, Demitha and Eris, and 2 champions we're excluding, Cardiel and Ninja. And I'm doing that primarily not because I don't want to use those champions, but because I assume most people don't have them. Let's apply the filter. And okay, we've got a very nice 89, almost 90 million damage team here that only includes 1 legendary, and that is Calvalax. If you subscribe to hellhades.com, you have an option to get a premium membership you can pay for, and that actually will entitle you to the premium version of the optimizer. I do not have that right now, although I'm thinking about getting one. And that will allow you to actually get more information about the variations and the builds of these champions. So if you're really interested in that and you think it's a good value, you can subscribe to hellhades.com and get access to the premium optimizer. But what I'm going to do here is just scroll down and look for a team that has champions. This is a great team. I love this team right here. Okay, this is a team that has all epics and rares. In fact, actually, let's keep going. I've got an idea. I want to see a team with Frozen Banshee. See if there's one that... All right, what I'm going to actually do in here is I'm going to include Frozen Banshee instead of Demitha. And my guess is it's still going to be a Demitha-based team. So let's go ahead and look at that. And there's one right here, and it is a Demitha team. 73 million, just barely. But you'll notice there are actually multiple teams here. So here's one with Deacon Armstrong and Arbiter. Here's one with Razin. Here's one with Farrakhan and Seeker. So if you have Demitha, Eris, and Frozen Banshee, you have some options. The nice thing about this Deacon Armstrong one is that is all completely free champions. Like, I mean, the legendaries and the epics here. So Deacon and Arbiter. But unfortunately, that's only 48 million. So I'm really looking at this team up here. So no legendaries, 2 rares, 73 million per key. So this could be a composition that you could look for. Potentially, you could get more damage than this team by having better gear, or potentially by tweaking, the team a little bit in terms of either speeds or gear or sets or anything like that. So coming into the optimizer is a very good place to go ahead and look for specific teams with specific champions or that exclude specific champions. Now, these are just ideas. Like I said, if you have the premium version, you can get the actual speeds and skill priorities in the AI. So I recommend that you do that if you find that valuable. However, there is also another website that we can use to also get ideas about teams. And remember, one of the things that we're talking about, and we're starting to get into it, is an unkillable team composition. So let's go over to deadwoodjedi.com. Now here is deadwoodjedi.com. This is the place for all of your clan boss speed tunes. He has the clan boss calculator on the website. We'll get into that a little bit. Remember, we're just going to do the basics. We're going to talk about the clan boss calculator in another video. But he also has a list of speed tunes. So this is another place you can come for speed tunes. And this will have all of the information you need in order to get started on speed tuning your either killable or unkillable team composition. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just click on speed tunes. And you'll notice that there are hundreds, maybe definitely over 100 different clan boss speed tunes. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and filter. And again, I might want to filter by a champion I have. So I could filter by Man-Eater. I want an unkillable team. I'd like it to be easy, moderate, probably not hard. And I'd like it to be at least a 2-key Ultra Nightmare or a 1-key Ultra Nightmare. And preferably on all affinities. And let's go ahead and see what kind of builds we can find. Okay, so there are a number of builds or speed tunes that meet this criteria. So let's go ahead and look at probably the most famous of all clan boss speed tunes, which is the budget Man-Eater Unkillable. You notice this is a moderate difficulty. It is a 2-key Ultra Nightmare performance, and it is affinity friendly. Now, affinity friendly is a term you're going to hear a lot, and basically what it means is you can take the same speed tune against all of the affinities, and you don't have to change the speed tune. So some speed tunes won't work against certain affinities, particularly the spirit boss. And there are basically 2 things that could mess up a affinity, like make a comp not affinity friendly. The first is the spirit boss has a slow on his second AoE. So if you don't account for that slow, that will disconnect your speed tune, because all of the other turns will be speed tuned for a specific speed. Now you'll be slowed down. And if you can't get rid of that slow, that's going to change the speed that your team is running at and potentially break your speed tune. The second thing that might happen as you change affinity is a different champion on your composition might become the stun target. One of the ways that the boss chooses stun targets is based on affinity. So the clan boss would rather hit a weak affinity champion than a strong affinity champion. So as the affinity of the boss changes, the stun target on your team may change, and that may affect your speed tune, depending on how you're dealing with the stun. So in order to be affinity friendly, you need to account for those two things. Can you cleanse the slow on spirit affinity? And can you either manage the stun target or deal with the stun in a way that the affinity doesn't matter and the target doesn't matter? So let's go ahead and look at this budget man-eater unkillable. Now, this is what you will primarily get. There are a lot of resources here on the website. The first is that you have a video up here. You can go ahead and watch that. I highly recommend you do, because no matter how much time I spend trying to explain this, Deadwood Jedi and his team are the masters of it. They know even better than I do. They're the ones who built the clan boss calculator. So go ahead and watch their videos on any speed tune you are considering, and you will get a very complete description of how that speed tune works. The team composition graphic here includes the champions that must be on the team, and sometimes examples of other teams that you can have. Sometimes examples of other champions you can have. In this case, you need Maneater and you need Painkeeper, and you don't need any other particular champion, but you have to have these two champions, and you have to run them at the speeds mentioned. If you see a range, that is because you do not have to land on one particular speed, but you need to be in that range of speeds. For Maneater here, it is only 240 or 241, so you must be running at 240 or 241. For the slots that are not filled here, you can see that there is a roll. So it says DPS, DPS, and then stun target any DPS. So we know that that slowest champion there, running between 111 and 118, will be the stun target. So that is how we are dealing with the stun in this particular case. We are trying to direct it to a specific champion. Now that is tricky. That is why this is a moderately difficult speed tune instead of an easy speed tune. But it is the cheapest or like most accessible speed tune there is, because it only requires one epic Maneater and one rare Painkeeper. She is a void rare, but that's all it requires. And so in terms of speed tuning, this is about as accessible a team as you can get. Now, again, if you have Demitha, right, she does a great job, and that is another option, and you could use Demitha and Eris. So that is another very accessible option. Let's go take a look at one of those speed tunes. Now, here is the budget Myth Air composition. This is another very good, very accessible composition. But what you'll notice is this has 4 required champions: Demitha, Eris, and 2 Painkeepers. So this is less accessible than the budget Maneater, but it's easier to tune. So, you can judge what tune you want to go for based on the champions that you have, and also the difficulty of tuning the composition. This only leaves you with 1 DPS, which is why it is rated at a 3-key Ultra Nightmare. So you could potentially get a 2-key Ultra Nightmare, or maybe even a 1-key Ultra Nightmare if you had God tier gear and an amazing 5th DPS champion for this composition. But the reason that the original search didn't pull this up is because I was looking for 2 keys and 1 keys only, and this is a 3-key. Now, under each tune, whichever tune you happen to be investigating, there will be some important considerations, and this is a text explanation of things you need to concern yourself with when you are fine-tuning this team composition. And then below that, for every single speed tune, there will be an actual link to the Deadwood Jedi clan boss calculator. So now let's just look at that for a minute. We're not going to dive too deeply into it, but we are going to look at it. So we're going to go ahead and check out the Ultra Nightmare version of this team. Okay, so here is our first look at the actual clan boss calculator. And I know that this can be a little bit daunting, but don't worry. I will have another video that covers this in its entirety, and will walk you through how to use it and how to tweak your teams so that they work perfectly. But for right now, let's just go ahead and look at the left side, and you can see there is a column over there where we have all of the champions on this list. Now, Ninja is the damage dealer they've put in here. Ninja is probably one of the top 2 or 3. Yeah, probably top 2 or 3 clan boss damage dealers in the game. So if you were going with this team composition, you'd want to get as much damage as you could out of that last open slot, the only DPS slot that you can add here. And so they've gone ahead and put Ninja in here. But if we look at just the components of the clan boss calculator, the difficulty up here is Ultra Nightmare. We know the speed of the clan boss. We have the affinity. Then we put in every champion with all of the speeds. Now, the output here, all the crazy colored bars, those are the champions. So each color bar associates with one champion. So the blue bar is Ninja's bar, whereas the yellow bar you can see is Demytha's bar. And this is the predicted rotation for the duration of the fight. And as you can see, the composition comes into tune on turn 3. So right here, what we get here up on turn 3 is a progression of turns that doesn't change anymore. It just rotates, and we have Demytha ending every time. And basically, if you look down, this just repeats itself. This pattern repeats itself over and over and over again, all the way through turn 50. That's how you know it's in tune. So if you can meet these exact speeds with these exact champions, except for Ninja, remember Ninja is a variable champion. You can put any damage dealer you want in there. That is going to tune with these speeds. Now, there are tweaks that can happen. There are things that can mess this up. One is any turn meter mastery. So any mastery that can give you 10% turn meter when a buff wears off or when a debuff wears off. Those things you have to stay away from. Anything that can reset a skill, like the 5% mastery that resets a skill randomly. And the reason is you need to use skills at specific times here. There are also artifact sets that can mess up a speed tune. The most common is Relentless. Relentless has a chance of giving you an extra turn, and that can mess you up. Also, if you have anybody in Frenzy, Reflex, or even Retaliation sets, that could potentially throw off a speed tune. So you want to make sure you don't put any champions in any set that affects their cooldown or their turn meter, and they don't have any masteries that affect their cooldowns or their turn meters. So remember that team that I built earlier in the video and showed you, and I only got 40-something million out of it? It had amazing champions. They were built really well. It considered all of the clan boss needs that you want to put on a team. Cardiel, Mithril, you remember. It was just a minute ago, right? That is a 2-key Ultra Nightmare team. This team right here, the Myth Air Alternate, is a 1-key Ultra Nightmare team. And if you look at it, it has 2 rares and 2 epics, and then a random DPS. Now, the DPS should be a good DPS, but potentially this could be a Frozen Banshee. If you have the right gear and the right speed tune, and you put everybody and build everybody the right way, you can potentially get 1-key Ultra Nightmare out of a tune like this. So this is a much cheaper, much more accessible way to 1-key your Ultra Nightmare, or even just 2-key your Ultra Nightmare if that's what you're trying to accomplish. You can make progress without amazing champions. You need the right combination of champions, and you need to learn how to speed tune. If you don't speed tune this team, they're not going to get you 40 million. Not like my team. My team had very powerful champions with very powerful gear. This team is getting its power out of the speed tune. So as long as you can get these speeds, and you'll notice Demytha here is going very fast at 329. This is a 3-to-1 team composition. But if you can get this speed tune, you will always get 50 turns. So as long as you can do about 1.5 million damage per turn, you're going to hit your 70 million. So if you can hit that amount of damage and get your 50 turns, you're going to get your 1-key Ultra Nightmare. But even if you don't get to 1-key Ultra Nightmare right away, if you can get a 2-key Ultra Nightmare, that is incredible progression for relatively cheap investment in terms of champions. A Doomscreech and an Eris, those are very cheap champions. Demytha and Deacon Armstrong, Deacon's free for a promo code for most players, and Demytha is a little bit tricky to get. She is a Void Epic, but that's the only unkillable champion that you need. Remember, if you have a different unkillable champion, if you have a Maneater, if you have a Helicath, if you have a Roshgar the Tower, if you have a couple of Warcasters, you have all of these different options, you come to the website here and you check out what speed tunes already exist for those champions, and you can start building your first speed tune. Now, just quickly to go over killable teams, there are also speed tunes for killable teams. So if you wanted to do that, you could just go ahead and go to the speed tune list again. And then when you filter, instead of going for unkillable, click traditional. Then go ahead and filter there. You will find there are still a number of traditional teams. Some of the unkillables, for some reason, make it onto this list. I don't know exactly why that's true. But you can look for champions and team compositions that work with killable champions. So no unkillable buff, no block damage buff. Don't forget about the Hell Hades Optimizer. That's another great place to get ideas for speed tunes. And finally, also remember to talk to your clan mates, talk to your Discord community, find ideas there. There are a lot of speed tunes out there. There's more than could possibly ever be listed on Deadwood Jedi's site. There are more than are at the top of the list here in the HH Optimizer. So make sure that you're educating yourself and also looking for those champions like we talked about in the last video. Planning ahead, planning for your Nightmare Clan Boss team, planning for your Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss team. And again, as soon as you get one or two of these champions, as soon as you pull your Demitha, you know you're building one of those compositions and you're going in that direction. As soon as you got your Frozen Banshee, you have your Clan Boss damage dealing solution. And it doesn't matter whether you go killable or unkillable because she can work in both. So educate yourself. You've watched this video already. That's a great start. Hopefully you've watched my previous videos in the series. We've got more to come. So subscribe to make sure you get notifications when those pop. But start educating yourself on the champions that are available and start working towards one of these speed tunes. Don't worry if it takes you a little while to get the hang of a speed tune. It took me several weeks to get my first speed tune done. And when I completed it, I did okay. It wasn't like a perfect automatic one key on Ultra Nightmare, but it taught me what I needed to know to keep progressing. By the time I made my second speed tune, well, you've seen it. I've got 120 million on Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, one key, full auto, every affinity. And that's the goal, to get there so that you don't ever have to worry about this fight again. Or if you want to mess around with the calculator and make cool speed tunes, that can be really fun as well. Okay, one last look at my Ultra Nightmare team. This is speed tuned. It was a task to get it done. It is an unkillable team using Helicath as my unkillable, as my block damage champion. And yeah, I do have Ninja. I'm actually thinking about rebuilding this team because I don't need the damage it produces, and I would like to take those champions and use them elsewhere and get them out of these speed tunes. So I'm going to think about doing that. But in the meantime, I hope this has helped you. I hope it has showed you why speed tuning is so valuable and maybe giving you a little bit of an introduction into speed tuning that demystifies it a little bit. Don't worry if you're still a little bit confused. We've got a speed tuning video coming later this week. We will cover the Clan Boss calculator in full, and we'll talk about all the tweaks that you need to do to make sure that your speed tune, the one that you've chosen from the list and the one you've built and put all of those resources into, actually works the way it's intended. And before we even get there, we'll probably have the stun target video as well. I don't know if I'm going to combine those into one video or not. That's kind of a lot. So we might make 2 videos out of that probably. Yeah, but so stun targeting, Clan Boss calculator, you're on the way to Ultra Nightmare. That's it for me. I've been Colred. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and join our Discord community. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you in another video very soon.